This segment of Crime Chronicles takes us back to 1870 here in Graham, the county seat of Alamance County, North Carolina, in North Carolina's Piedmont region. Actually, this crime occurred across the street where we are right now, thereabouts, from the Alamance County Courthouse, which you see behind me. It was in 1870 that members of the Ku Klux Klan brutally lynched a man named Wyatt Outlaw, an African-American man, former constable, who only wanted to do what was right by the African-American population just after the Civil War's end. We'll take a look at the lynching of Wyatt Outlaw and the KKK in North Carolina during the era of Reconstruction in this segment. As is often the case with poor people, particularly slaves in the 19th century, not much is known about Wyatt Outlaw's background or childhood. People think he was born in Virginia into slavery, but he somehow escaped slavery in some way and managed to serve with the Union Army during the Civil War. After the Civil War, he moved to North Carolina, settled here in Alamance County. He became active in a couple of organizations, especially the Union League, an organization formed in Philadelphia to assist African Americans in both the North and the South. He was also active in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the AME Church, which was active in the South as well as the North. Now, Wyatt Outlaw also became very closely intertwined with prominent Republican politicians of his day, as most white North Carolinians were Democrats and most black citizens were Republicans. He managed to get himself appointed constable in Alamance County, probably a first for a black man in this county, although he took the position somewhat reluctant. He didn't care about being in law enforcement. He only wanted to make a living and try to do what was right by the people here. In the process of trying to do what was right, he ran afoul of the KKK here in Alamance County. Now, when people say the KKK, it's a bit of a misnomer. It's a bit inaccurate because there was no one national organization that all KKK members subscribed to. After all, they couldn't keep membership ledgers or things like that because they operated quasi-secretly. Sometimes people in the town knew who the KKK, the Ku Kluxers were. Sometimes they didn't, but in any case, it was sort of an open secret sometimes, which they couldn't afford to share, either because people were in cahoots with the KKK or sympathized with them, or because they were afraid of them. The governor of North Carolina during Reconstruction was a man named William Holden, not to be confused with the famous actor who came along about 7 years later. Holden was a Republican who had switched party affiliation several times and was not popular with many North Carolinians, particularly white North Carolinians. One of the things that Holden did that really alienated voters was his support of a bill which authorized him to declare martial law in any North Carolina which he declared was in a state of insurrection. Well, upon passage of that law, the KKK reportedly put out a hit list which included Governor Holden, several others, including those who sponsored the law, as well as Wyatt Outlaw, because of his support for African Americans and because of his role as constable here in Alamance County. Well, the event that sealed Wyatt Outlaw's fate occurred right across the street here at the courthouse. One night, we're not exactly sure what provoked this, but supposedly some KKK or Ku Kluxers were riding around the town terrorizing black citizens. In response, Wyatt Outlaw, who was probably by now not even a constable, but he and several other African American citizens confronted the KKK right here. No one was killed, no one was seriously injured, but gunshots were exchanged. From that point on, Wyatt Outlaw was a marked man. Well, I'm here in the 200 block of Graham, Alamance County, at the First Baptist Church of Graham. This is significant because this is the spot close to Wyatt Outlaw's residence at the time he was murdered. He was living with his mother. At the time, Outlaw was a widow. So the Ku Kluxers, the KKK, broke into his home in the middle of the night. The first person they encountered was his mother. They demanded of her where he was. Should have been hard to find, a small house, no doubt. And she said in the bedroom or something like that. And so they go into the bedroom, and Wyatt Outlaw is getting dressed because he has heard the commotion that's going on in the other part of the house. They drag Wyatt Outlaw from his house. They take him 2 blocks to the courthouse square, about on the 100 block of Main Street, and that's where he was murdered brutally. Well, after the Ku Kluxers of the KKK dragged Wyatt Outlaw from his home about 2 blocks from here, his mother's home actually, they brought him here to the courthouse. Now, they could have done the deed pretty much anywhere in town, but they picked this central location for a reason. One, because to them it represented justice. And 2, they wanted to make sure that everyone in Graham, everyone in Alamance County knew what had happened. This happened at night, in the dead of night, so when nobody could see what was going on. That's the way the Ku Kluxers usually operated, was clandestinely at night. But they wanted to make sure their message was heard or seen, and therefore people would wake up the next day, go to town, and see the victim's body on display. That's what happened with Wyatt Outlaw. The Ku Kluxers made no attempt to be humane in Wyatt Outlaw's execution. They slashed his mouth for quote-unquote being mouthy, and they beat and assaulted him all the way from his house 2 blocks away here to the courthouse. And when he was hung from a tree at the courthouse or somewhere in this area, they attached a note to his neck that said, "Beware you guilty, one and all." I'm standing in the courtyard just across the street from the courthouse here in Graham. It was dedicated to Wyatt Outlaw, but sadly there is no mention of his name anywhere in this courtyard. The vast majority of North Carolinians, including people from Alamance County, abhor actions such as the one perpetrated against Wyatt Outlaw in 1870. But the question remains, will the wounds of the Civil War ever be healed?